Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the Runcam Eagle 2 and the Runcam Eagle 2 Pro. Now these are two very similar cameras with slight differences which I'll go into in a bit. But if you are a subscriber to my channel you might be thinking, why is Andy checking these cameras out? They are CMOS cameras when in the past he has been telling us that CCD cameras are the best. And from the micro world, that is generally correct. The little micro quadcopters that I've been dealing with over the years, they have very cheap CMOS cameras in them that aren't very good at dealing with dynamic range. And then we have the Micro Swift that has come out, and of course we can put those in our micros now. The thing is though, that CMOS sensors are very good if more money is spent on them. For example, this high-end camera that I'm recording with here that also records in 4K has a CMOS sensor in it. And that is similar to these Runcam cameras in that there's been more money spent on them, and actually there's an argument out there that these CMOS cameras are way better than the Swift cameras. I definitely think that is subjective, but I'm interested to check it out. Now, I also think they are very similar to the Foxeer Monster, which I checked out, and I liked it. So, as I say, I'm very interested to see how these two are going to perform. As for the differences between the two, so we have the Eagle 2 here, and this is the 16:9 version. You can get it in a 4:3 version. The difference is the Pro actually switches between 16:9 and 4:3. I don't think this one has got a built-in on-screen display either. It's about £3 cheaper though, and you can turn the on-screen display off on this one. So I would say that if you can afford the extra £3, then go for this one. Maybe, I don't know. I want to see the difference between the two. It might turn out that this one's actually got a better picture. I think one of the things that these cameras struggle with is like a chroma distortion effect against the CCD cameras. So a sort of shimmering colour effect. And I'm interested to check that out. And I think basically these cameras are going to come down to whether you want better dynamic range with the CMOS cameras, or if you want a clearer picture with okay dynamic range. I think that's what it's going to come down to. And of course as well, these are 16:9 cameras, so if you're using goggles such as the Omway Commanders and want to take advantage of the big screen, or are using the visor goggles, then that might be another reason to go for 16:9 to get a truly immersive view from your goggles. So the non-Pro version comes in a bigger box for some reason, and as I say, this is the 16:9 version. What is interesting though is that the field of view is 170 degrees here, and on the Pro version in 16:9 the field of view is 170 degrees, then in 4:3 it's 140 degrees, so it's actually cropping the 4:3. It's usually the opposite with these sorts of things, and the full sensor is a 4:3, but that is not the case with this, it seems. Other than that, it looks like the voltage input is very similar, so 5 volts to 36 volts. And I think the Pro version's a little bit lighter as well. I think that one weighs 14 grams and the non-Pro version is 18 grams, so yeah, a little bit heavier there as well. So let's see what you get in the box. Let's start off with the non-Pro version. So this is the red one here, and just looking at the back here, I'm seeing our voltage in, the ground, and then the video. So I don't think there's an on-screen display with this one. And then we've got the connector for the settings, so it has a little control and we can change the settings there, and I think a lot of people have been doing that. I think the sharpness is turned up quite high. I will check that when I plug it all into a copter, but reducing the sharpness should reduce that shimmer effect that everybody is talking about with this camera. One thing I like about this version of the Runcam is that you get different mounting options. This one actually came with a bigger mount on the back, but you only have to remove the back these days, not the entire case, so I like that about it. So let's have a look what else we've got here. So got a instruction manual on how to plug it all in, the settings, etc. More advertising. This is what I was talking about. Look, this was on this camera originally. It was just on the back there, a little bit heavier with this one, so I took it off and replaced it because the copter I'm going to be using doesn't need this extra support here. And then we've got the usual controller here that just plugs in, and we've got a mount. I think it's a metal mount there, and then we've got various different plugs. So the plug is different on this one than the Pro, so it's just a 3-pin on this one there, like I say, and that's there. And then we have got an extender here for the controller, so you can keep that in your copter and just tuck it away and then pull it out if you want to change any of the settings, which is pretty good. So let's see what is different with the Pro version. So the Pro version has come in the lovely Runcam orange, and you can see there that we have more pins on the back there. This one also has a microphone built into it as well. Now I don't do audio personally, but you can see there that, again, we've got the voltage in, the ground, video, and then audio, and then the VBAT. So that's a V sensor to go to your positive on the battery, or if you've got a VBAT on your flight controller that feeds through, and that'll feed through to the camera. Or if you power the camera directly through the VBAT, then that information will feed through to the on-screen display. And let's have a look at some of the other stuff. So this is interesting. They've done away with the instruction manual here and just said visit the website to download the manual, which is, I think that's fair enough. Saves on papers and things, and I think we're all using stuff online these days, you know, to figure out how to use this information. Now this is interesting. This one has a completely different case. So you can see there it comes with the 3 holes, and then we've got this case here with just the 1 hole, and then we've got this other mounting option as well. So I guess more mounting options with this Pro version. Now let's have a look in here. We've got the controller. Now this one is going to be a little bit different because this one is going to allow us to change the camera settings, but it's also going to allow me to change the on-screen display settings and the placement of some of the on-screen display. And then the harness is going to be different as well. So you can see we've got all the usual cables, except now we've got audio, and then this blue one here is the V sensor, which you are to solder. Like I say, if you just plug it straight into the VBAT, then it will take the information from there. And we're also given a 3-pin cable as well if you just want to go that route. And those, I think, are they both 1.25 pitch 3-pin JSTs there. And then this one, I guess, is going to be a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Let's have a look. What else? So again, we've got the extension cable there, and we've got some screws and O-rings. Those actually were in the last package. I just rushed over them. And again, we've got the same mount there as well. So yeah, for only £3 more, something like that, you can get the Pro version. So I'm gonna stick these on a model and let's see if it is worth spending the extra couple of pounds, or is the original just as good. So I want to talk a little bit about latency, because the first Eagle had latency issues, and that might put a lot of people off the rest of the series, but I do believe that they've fixed the latency issues and it's now on par with the Swifts. So I'm interested to see if I notice anything, because I usually don't have too many problems with latency with any FPV cameras, but if you are an avid racer, then you might do. But according to the figures, this one is similar to the Swift, so I shouldn't have any problems. So I have connected the Eagle 2 up to my Hyperlight Floss because it is Runcam ready, just a single connector there. So I've got the controller connected up, so it's just a button press in the middle to get the menu up. Now this one came set as NTSC, but this on-screen display is set as PAL, so I've switched it to PAL. That's a great thing about this camera, it switches, you don't have to get PAL or NTSC specific. And then we've got the language here, you can load the defaults, we've got the software version, and then if we go up here, we can set it to either go black and white auto, or we can have it always color, which I've selected, and then you can have it always black and white, so I'm going to keep it on color. And then the image, what I was talking about earlier, if we go into there, so you can see there that we've got a gain on there, which I'm just keeping as standard. And then wide dynamic range, this is the magic thing with this camera. If we turn that off, just look at the difference there. That makes a huge amount of difference. And then we can mirror the image, we can change the brightness, you can zoom in if you'd ever want to do that. And then image enhance in here, and this is the sharpness that I was talking about. Now it's set to auto here, but if we go onto manual, you can set all of this to 0, so I'm going to do that so there's no sharpening that's gone on there. And if I do return, and then we've got saturation there as well, which I'm going to leave the same, but then I can just come out of here, return, and then save and exit, and that's pretty much all I'm going to change for the Eagle 2. Okay, so here is some DVR footage taken from the Omway Commander goggles. It has been stretched to match the 16:9 aspect ratio of the camera, and I have to say I completely agree with what has already been said about this camera. I mean, just look at the sky. It is completely exposed correctly, but so is the ground. We don't have any dark patches. The dynamic range is absolutely amazing. One thing I will say is interesting about this camera is when I put a CCD camera on this model, so this is the Hyperlight Floss model that I built, you can see that the writing on the motors and the props are just slightly out of focus, and that is in order for the background to be in focus and the distance. But with a CCD camera, usually at the distance the props and motors are, they are usually in focus as well, so it must be a trait of the CCD camera, but it's not a big deal to me. I'm not looking at the props, I'm looking in the distance, and I have to say I really like what I see. Now when it comes to the Eagle, so the non-pro version, the one that we're looking at here, the 4x3 version of the camera does cut the field of view down to 140 degrees. So this is 170, and I have to say I really loved flying like this. So if you are interested in the CMOS camera in general, I would say go for the 16:9 version and go for the Pro version as well. As I chase a bird there, they never stay in shot for long. Yeah, because otherwise you're going to lose quite a bit of field of view. In fact, when I flew the Pro version, I flew it with the 4x3 and the 16:9, and you will see that in a minute. But yeah, really like what I'm seeing, and I'm glad that I turned the sharpness down as well, because I'm not seeing any shimmers whatsoever, and if you want to add any sharpening you can do that afterwards, but I haven't needed to do that here. I thought the clarity was fine. Yeah, absolutely love the colours. You have to remember as well that the DVR does ruin the picture slightly because it's a lower bit rate than I'm obviously looking at through the goggles, so yeah, you have to bear in mind it doesn't look as good here as I was seeing through the goggles, but I have to say that even the recorded DVR footage looks great. So let's next connect up the Eagle 2 Pro and have a look what that's all about. Okay, so here we are looking through the goggles, and I've connected up the Eagle 2 Pro, and you can already see that we have the on-screen display here coming from the camera itself. I've turned the on-screen display off in Betaflight. So if you want to change any of the things on the on-screen display, you plug the controller in and then you press up. And then you can see here you can change the name that appears on the camera, and you can turn that on or off. We've got the timer, the voltage, and then you can exit out of there. And then, same as before, you can take the controller and hold it down to the side, and you can move the voltage around if you want. And same if you hold it down, you can move the pilot name, and then to the right, if you hold that down, you can move the time if you want to. And then if we press the controller in the middle, we've got the same options. So you can see here I have changed it to PAL. It was NTSC out of the box. That's something that is great about these cameras, is you can change it. And then we've got the colour, black and white, and auto settings here. And you can see that we've got the screen format. It's currently in 4:3, and if I move it to 16:9, you will see how much wider it gets. Pay attention to the propellers and the motors. You've got more field of view. So if I go back in there and move it back to 4:3, you can see the difference there. So we can change the language, we can load default settings, and then if I go into image here, we can change the gain. We've got the dynamic range on, same as before. And then image enhance, again, sharpness, I've moved down to 0, and edge down to 0. Just my preference to get rid of the shimmering, and then I can add sharpness filters if I want to afterwards in an editor. And then saturation and all of the other settings the same as before, except we can change the aspect ratio here. Okay, so I have switched to my Fat Shark Dominator HD3s here because those are a 4:3 aspect ratio, and it's more of the same. The picture quality is fantastic. Didn't notice any problems with latency. Again, we can see the ground and the sky very clearly, even if it is a very dull day. The colours pop in the goggles. It's a really nice view, and despite it only being a 140-degree field of view with the 4:3 image, I found it really nice to fly, very flyable. I didn't find myself struggling at all. So yeah, I like both the 4:3 option and the 16:9 option, and it's gonna make this quad more versatile because sometimes I'm out there with the Onways, sometimes I'm out there with visor goggles, and then sometimes with Fat Sharks, so I can just change it when I want. It's fantastic, and I don't have anything bad to say about them, really, and I just want to applaud Runcam again for pursuing with this technology. It's fantastic. These are my favourite cameras, and I'm going to be using them a lot, I think. So I will switch to the 16:9 with the Eagle 2 Pro, so you can check that out, but really there isn't any difference with it other than it having a on-screen display. The picture is exactly the same as the Eagle 2 as far as I can tell, and yeah, I'll put links in the description to all of the products, and I hope this video was useful for you if you're looking into these cameras. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.
Retribution against the system. Taking a stand, this wasn't enough. We the people expect time to change the world for us. Living in a fantasy, taking everything away from me. Losing faith was a reaction to your miscalculation. Waiting to watch the world burn. Waiting to watch the world burn. Until we build up resistance.